My name is Natalie Greer, and I'm 35 years old. 6 months ago, if you'd looked at my life on paper, you would have said something comforting and smug like, "She's fine. She's stable. She's got it figured out." I owned a modest townhouse in the suburbs. 2 bedrooms, small yard, enough space to breathe, but not enough to impress anyone. I drove a reliable car that started on the first try, paid into my retirement accounts like clockwork, and could tell you down to the dollar how much was in my emergency fund. I'm the kind of woman who labels the shelves in her pantry and actually reads the terms and conditions before signing anything. Colin used to joke that I was the most responsible person he'd ever met. He'd say it with this charming half smile, like it was adorable that I knew our exact interest rates and the optimal time to run the dishwasher to use off-peak power. We'd been together for 7 years, living together for 5. He moved into my place after his lease ended and never left. We talked about marriage in that vague someday way, when work slowed down, when things were more stable, when the timing felt right. Timing, stability. He loved those words when he was talking about me. He just didn't apply them to himself. For a long time, it worked. I handled most of the logistics, bills, insurance, appointments, the endless grind of adult life. He handled charm, social events, making people like us. He was good at that, effortlessly good. I thought we were a team. Now, watching him on my couch, knees bouncing, eyes darting, I realized we'd never been a team. I'd been a foundation. He'd just been standing on me. Looking back, I can see all the places the cracks started. The first was his phone. Colin had never been secretive about his phone before. It lived face up on the counter, chiming constantly with group chats and fantasy football leagues, and his coworkers sending stupid memes. Then one day, the notification sound changed. A quick, sharp buzz I'd never heard before. I reached for the phone out of habit, thinking maybe it was mine, and the screen was already dark. Locked. New passcode? I asked lightly, more curious than suspicious. He didn't look up from the fridge. Yeah, IT at work has been freaking out about security lately. You know, data breaches and stuff. It made sense. Everything made sense back then, if I wanted it to. The second crack, late nights. Colin worked in sales. Long hours, unpredictable schedules, clients who wanted to grab drinks at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday to talk numbers. I knew the industry was demanding. I'd heard enough of his stories. But the late nights started stacking up. Client dinner, he'd text. Emergency meeting. Big presentation tomorrow, we're rehearsing. More and more, I found myself eating dinner alone, his plate wrapped in foil in the fridge, untouched when I woke up to an empty cold side of the bed. The third crack, money. I'm not the kind of person who forgets about money. Numbers are my comfort zone. My job in finance has trained me to spot patterns quickly and to notice when they change. One Friday afternoon, I logged into our shared account to move the usual amount into savings. The balance was off. Not by a lot, just enough to make my brain itch. Maybe I miscalculated, I told myself. Maybe I forgot a bill. I checked the statements. There it was. A series of ATM withdrawals from a neighborhood nowhere near his office or our house. Small amounts, $80 here, $60 there, spaced just far enough apart to look harmless. Except they weren't. Little cracks, hairline fractures. The kind you can ignore until you can't. In the living room, Colin sniffed loudly and reached for my hand. I didn't let him touch me. He noticed. His expression hardened for a split second, then rearranged itself into something softer, more pitiful. "You're being really cold right now," he said. "This is hard for me too, you know." I almost laughed. "For you," I repeated. "Right. That's not what I meant." He dragged in a breath. "Look, Brianna and I, we messed up. It shouldn't have happened, but it did. And she wants to keep the baby." The words dropped like stones in my stomach. "She wants to," I said. "And what do you want, Colin?" "I don't know," he burst out. "I'm freaking out, okay? That's why I came to you. You're the rational one. You always know what to do. You're good with money, with planning, with all this adult stuff." He gestured vaguely around the room, like the walls and furniture and neatly stacked mail were my personality. "I need you," he said, voice softening. "We have this life you built for us. I can't just walk away from that. I don't want to. I love you." He looked at me like that word was supposed to be a trump card. Love. As if love meant I was obligated to absorb the fallout of his choices. As if love meant writing a blank check to his chaos. "Then why," I asked quietly, "did you go back to your ex-girlfriend?" His gaze slid away. "It was complicated. We have history, Nat. You don't just turn that off." But you do turn off a passcode, I said, if security is the only reason you put one on your phone. For the first time, a flicker of real fear crossed his face. Are you going through my phone? He asked, as if that were the real violation here. No, I said, I don't need your phone. Not when I had something much better. He didn't catch the change in my tone. He was too busy spiraling, reaching for the version of me he was used to. The accommodating one, the fixer, the woman who made things work, no matter how much weight was dropped on her shoulders. Nat, listen, he said, scooting forward. Brianna and I were talking, and we both agreed that the most practical thing is for you and me to stay together while we figure this out. You're already covering most of the house stuff. It's not like that would change. And, well, you make more than I do. There it was, the truth finally allowed to slip out. He rushed to cover it with sentiment. I'm not with you for your money, he added hastily. You know that. But realistically, you're in the best position to support all of us while I— Stop, I said sharply. He did. I leaned back in the armchair opposite him, crossed one leg over the other, and studied him like a case file, like a balance sheet. So let me get this straight, I said, my voice very quiet, very clear. You cheated on me with your ex-girlfriend. You got her pregnant. And now you're asking if I'll keep paying the bills while you become a father with someone else. He swallowed. When you say it like that, it sounds— How should I say it then? I asked. Go ahead. Put it in your own words. Exactly what you expect from me. He hesitated, then straightened a little, that familiar calculating look sliding into place behind his eyes. I'm having a baby, he said, enunciating each word carefully. She's having my child. But you and I, we have a home, a life, responsibilities. I need you to stay. I need you to keep providing, at least until things settle. That's what partners do, Nat. They show up when it counts. I let the silence stretch until I felt it press against his skin. You're saying this clearly? I asked. This is exactly what you're asking from me? Yes, he said, relief flickering across his face, like he thought I was finally getting it. Yes, that's what I need from you. I nodded once. Good, I said softly. I just wanted to make sure you heard yourself. I stood up. Colin blinked. Where are you going? Don't worry, I said, walking toward the hallway. I'm not abandoning you. Not yet. I pushed open the door to my home office and crossed to the desk, my heartbeat steady, my mind sharper than it had ever been. On the desktop, there was a folder with a neat, boring label. Insurance documents. I picked up my laptop, carried it back to the living room, and set it on the coffee table between us. Colin frowned. What are you doing? I opened the folder, clicked on a file whose name he couldn't see from where he was sitting. Then I turned the screen toward him. Since we're being practical, I said, it's time you hear something. I hit play. His own voice filled the room. And for the first time that night, he went completely, utterly still. 3 months before I ever pressed play on that recording, I was standing at the kitchen sink, staring at a lipstick stain that didn't belong to me. It was on one of our cheap white tumblers, faint and smudged. The color was wrong. Not my usual muted rose, but a bolder berry shade, the kind of color you wear when you want to be seen. The glass was in the wrong place too, tucked behind the blender like someone had shoved it there quickly and forgotten about it. I picked it up with a dish towel, turned it under the light, and felt my stomach tighten. Colin told me he'd eaten dinner alone the night before. Something about being too tired to go out with the guys, just wanting to chill at home. Funny, I didn't remember drinking anything out of this glass. I told myself there had to be a reasonable explanation. There usually is, if you're determined enough to find one. I rinsed the stain down the drain, put the glass back in the cabinet, and tried to let it go. I didn't succeed. The distance started as a feeling I couldn't quite name. Not cold exactly, not hostile, just absent. Colin had always been affectionate in an easy, physical way. A hand on the small of my back, a kiss on the top of my head when he passed behind the couch, pulling my feet into his lap while we watched TV. Then it thinned out, like someone turned down a dimmer switch only a few degrees at a time. Long week, he'd say when I'd lean in and he'd pull away. I'm exhausted. Rain check? I gave him rain checks until the metaphorical calendar in my head was full of them, all stacked on top of each other like unread messages. Our bed stayed warm on my side, cold on his. He was still charming in public, still smiling in photos. He still told stories at dinner parties that made our friends laugh, still rested his hand on my leg under the table. We looked fine from the outside. We always did. The night I stopped pretending it was in my head, I was in the living room, spreadsheets open on my laptop, sorting through our monthly expenses. It's my ritual. First Friday of the month, glass of wine, playlist in the background, numbers lining up in neat little rows. Colin was out with coworkers for a project kickoff. I logged into our joint checking account to move money into savings. The balance was wrong again. I frowned and scrolled through the recent transactions. There they were. 3 more ATM withdrawals, each from the same machine across town. Not near his office, not near any client I knew about. Certainly not near our house. $80, $60, $100. I could hear his voice in my head. Babe, it's just cash for lunch. Don't be so dramatic. Even before I asked. But lunches don't usually happen at 11 p.m. The timestamps glowed on the screen. 11:07 p.m., 10:52 p.m., 11:23 p.m. Okay, I whispered to myself, the words shaky and paper thin. Okay. I clicked over to my own private spreadsheet, the one Colin didn't know about, the one where 6 weeks earlier I'd started quietly logging every odd thing that didn't sit right. New passcode on his phone. Missed date night. No text until after midnight. Strange cologne, not his usual. Cash withdrawals. Odd locations. Unexplained Uber charges. Individually, they were nothing. Collectively, they were a pattern. And patterns are what I do. I close my eyes and let the numbers rearrange themselves in my mind, forming the outline of something I didn't want to see. You can love someone and still recognize that the math isn't adding up. I didn't confront him that night. Instead, I watched him when he came home. The key in the lock at 12:37 a.m., the deliberate quiet as he eased the door open, the soft curse when he saw me sitting on the couch, laptop still open, a show paused on the TV screen. Hey, he said, startled. You're still up? I couldn't sleep, I lied. How was the kickoff? Good, he said automatically. Long. You know how my boss gets when there's free top-shelf liquor. He smelled like cologne and bar food and something sweeter I couldn't place. I watched as he dropped his keys in the bowl, slid his phone into his pocket instead of tossing it on the side table like he used to. Did you eat? I asked. Yeah, he said too quickly. We ordered apps. He started toward the hallway, then paused. You okay? He asked, looking back at me. You're doing that thing with your face. What thing? The number-crunching thing? He wagged his fingers next to his temple like he was teasing. You look like you're about to audit someone's soul. I forced a tight smile. Just work stuff on my mind. He nodded and disappeared into the bedroom. I didn't follow. Instead, I picked up my phone, opened my email, and scrolled to a message I'd saved in my drafts a week earlier. Subject line, inquiry regarding services. Recipient, a private investigator recommended by a colleague at work. Someone who specialized in domestic cases and was discreet but thorough. My cursor hovered over the send button. I thought about the lipstick on the glass, the locked phone, the late-night withdrawals from the same machine miles away. I thought about how I'd been telling myself for months that this was just stress, just work, just a rough patch. I thought about how my chest felt lately, tight, like there was a rubber band around my ribs, pulled almost to snapping. Then I hit send. 3 days later, I was sitting in a small, nondescript office above a strip mall, hands folded neatly in my lap, facing a man who looked like he'd been printed out of a generic investigator template. Gray at the temples, neutral tie, calm, unreadable eyes. Ms. Greer, he said, glancing at the notes in front of him, you said in your email that you suspect your partner may be unfaithful. The word made my stomach twist. I don't know, I said. I suspect something. I'm not sure what. He nodded like he'd heard that 100 times. Tell me about his schedule, he said, and about the changes you've noticed. So I did. I told him about the late nights and the cash withdrawals, about the sudden performance of privacy around his phone, about the way his touch had vanished from our everyday routines. I didn't cry. I didn't dramatize. I listed facts like I was presenting an audit. He listened, asked a few clarifying questions, then leaned back in his chair. Does he know you're here? He asked. No. Do you have access to his social media, email, location services? Limited, I said. He's not careless. Not anymore. A corner of his mouth twitched, not quite a smile. People usually aren't, he said. That's why people like me stay in business. He outlined what he would do. Surveillance, GPS tracking of any shared vehicles, photos, timestamps, and, if he could swing it, audio recordings when my boyfriend was in public places. You should know, he added, that depending on your state's laws, some recordings are admissible, some aren't. But even when they're not, they're useful leverage. Leverage for what? I asked, already knowing. For negotiations, he said, for settlements, for making sure you don't walk away empty-handed from someone else's bad decisions. Something in my chest hardened. I'm not trying to ruin his life, I said. I didn't say you were. His gaze met mine, steady. I'm telling you how people use this kind of information. It's up to you what you do with it. I signed the retainer papers with hands that barely shook. As I did, he said quietly, almost as an afterthought, "The answer you don't want is still an answer." The first week of surveillance, nothing happened. Colin went to work, came home late, texted me generic sweet nothings from unknown locations. How's your day? Crazy busy, can't wait to see you. Don't wait up. This client is a nightmare, LOL. The investigator sent me short, dry updates. Subject left work 6:14 p.m. Drove to gym. Left gym 7:09 p.m. Home 7:32 p.m. No suspicious contact observed. I started to feel foolish, paranoid. Maybe I'd overreacted. Maybe he really was just stressed, and I was pathologizing normal rough patches because I like neat narratives and clean spreadsheets. Then, on day 9, I got an email with no text in the body, just 3 photo attachments and a single line in the subject. We should talk. I opened the first photo. Colin, standing outside a restaurant I recognized downtown, the charming Italian place where we'd celebrated our 1-year anniversary. He was leaning against the brick wall, checking his phone. His posture was relaxed, familiar. The second photo, a woman approaching him. I didn't need to see her face to feel it. The way his entire body tilted toward her, the easy way he opened his arms, pulling her into a hug that lasted just a beat too long. Dark hair, bright lipstick, a dress I wouldn't wear to a work dinner unless I wanted a very specific kind of attention. The third photo, them walking inside together, his hand resting low on her back. Intimate, casual, practiced. My throat closed. Beneath the photos, in tiny print, were the details. Location, restaurant address. Time, 7:18 p.m. Duration of meal, approx. 2 échangeurs 6 minutes. Subject identified companion as Brianna in recorded audio. Brianna. The name sat like ice in my stomach. I knew that name. I'd heard it in offhand stories, thrown around like an old joke. My ex, Brianna, was crazy, he'd said once, laughing with his friends. You dodged a bullet, Nat. I upgraded. He'd upgraded all the way back to her, apparently. My phone buzzed in my hand. A new text from Colin. Client dinner is dragging. I'm dying. Save me some of that leftover lasagna? I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Then I opened the investigator's email again and noticed there was a 4th attachment I hadn't clicked yet. Not a photo. An audio file. My finger hovered over it, every part of me screaming not to press play. I did anyway. The recording crackled for a second, then smoothed out. Clinking silverware. Restaurant chatter. A woman's laugh. Then Colin's voice, low and smug. No, she has no idea, he said. I told you she's completely clueless. She actually believes I'm working late all those nights. My heartbeat roared in my ears. The woman, Brianna, giggled. What are you going to do when she finds out? She asked. He snorted. She won't. And even if she does, what's she really going to do? Walk away? Please. She's invested. She's practical. Practical. My own favorite word, used like an insult. The recording went on, but I paused it there, fingers digging into the edge of the counter to keep myself upright. Somewhere far away, the oven timer went off, shrill and insistent. I didn't move. Outside, a car door slammed. A familiar engine idled in the driveway. Colin was home. I took a slow breath, closed the audio file, and saved it to a folder on my laptop. I named the folder something no one but me would ever bother opening. Insurance documents. Then I straightened my shoulders, wiped the tears I hadn't realized had escaped, and walked to the front door to greet the man who thought I was completely clueless. He had no idea that the clock on his version of our life had just started ticking down. Colin walked into the house that night smelling like overpriced cologne and Parmesan butter, the same scent blend that wafted through that Italian restaurant downtown. I used to associate that smell with anniversaries and soft lighting, and him reaching across the table to tuck a strand of hair behind my ear. Now all I could smell was betrayal. He kicked off his shoes, loosened his tie, and flashed me that familiar charming grin, the one that could disarm strangers, win over bartenders, and talk his way out of tickets. Hey, Nat, he said, leaning in to kiss my cheek. Missed you. It took everything inside me not to recoil. Long night? I asked, my voice neutral. He groaned dramatically. Longest of my life. Clients from hell. If they weren't paying us, I'd tell them to take their business somewhere else. He tossed his jacket onto the back of the couch, never on a hanger, never in a closet, and pulled his phone from his pocket. I watched as his thumb hovered, hesitated, then angled the screen away from me before unlocking it. A small, sharp piece of confirmation I didn't need, but accepted anyway. He glanced at the stovetop. "You cooked?" "Lasagna," I said. "But you already ate, didn't you?" He froze for half a second. The kind of pause you'd miss if you weren't studying him the way I was. Then he forced a laugh. "Oh, you know how these client things go," he said breezily. "Appetizers here and there. I could still eat, though." "Don't bother," I said. "I'm not hungry anymore." He blinked, confused, but moved on. He always did. He lived in a world where my moods adjusted to his needs, not the other way around. As he wandered into the bathroom, humming, I went to my laptop, clicked the audio file again, and listened to a few more seconds, studying every detail of his voice. What struck me wasn't the words, though they were vile enough. It was the tone. Proud, confident, completely unthreatened. He wasn't scared of getting caught, because he didn't think I was capable of catching him. That was his biggest miscalculation, and it was about to cost him everything. The next morning, I woke up early, long before Colin's alarm. He was sprawled across the bed like someone who slept with a clear conscience. I sat on the edge, studying the rise and fall of his back as he breathed, and felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, just a cold, precise kind of clarity. I showered, dressed, and slipped out quietly. My first stop was my office downtown, but not for work. I had an appointment with an attorney. Her name was Alicia Porter, a woman in her 40s, with a razor-sharp gaze and an even sharper understanding of financial law. My colleague recommended her, saying, "If someone is trying to screw you over, Alicia will find every loophole and thread to unravel them." Perfect. She skimmed the summary I'd typed, dates, bank statements, timeline oddities, attachments, and nodded thoughtfully. "You're very organized," she said. "I like being prepared. That will make this easier." She folded her hands. "First question, do you want to leave him? Because with what you've told me so far, you absolutely have grounds." "I don't know yet," I said honestly. "I'm not making decisions until I see the full picture." "Good," she said. "Then let's get you the full picture." I slid my laptop across the table and opened the audio file. Alicia listened without interrupting. When it ended, she exhaled slowly. "He says this in public?" "At a restaurant." Her eyebrows lifted. "Do you have more?" "I can get more." "Do it," she said. "Recordings, photos, timestamps, financial movement. The more we have, the more leverage you get." Leverage. The investigator used the same word. I was starting to like that word. Alicia tapped her pen twice on her notebook. "You also need to stop sharing financial accounts immediately." "That's tricky," I said. "We share the mortgage." "For now, but everything else? You separate it. Quietly, strategically." She leaned forward. "And one more thing. You need to start acting normal around him. You can't tip him off." I nodded. I'd already known that instinctively. Colin had been underestimating me for years. I wasn't about to ruin that advantage now. The investigator delivered more within days. It turned out that Colin and Brianna didn't just meet for dinners. They met at a hotel off the interstate twice, a wine bar near her apartment, a parking garage where they kissed in the shadows like teenagers, her office building after hours. Every photo was time-stamped, labeled, and painfully clear. But the recording, the second one, was worse. This time, they weren't in a restaurant. They were in her car. The microphone caught the low murmur of their voices. "Colin, she has no clue. Nat just trusts me. It's almost too easy." "Brianna, you're lucky. When this baby comes, she'll probably help you raise it." Colin laughed. "She'll help pay for it, that's for sure. She's practical. She won't walk away from the house. She invested too much." Brianna giggled. "So you get both of us?" "Why not?" he said smugly. "It works out for everyone." I paused the recording. The edges of my vision pulsed. The living room suddenly felt too small, the air too warm. Colin wasn't just cheating. He wasn't even torn. He was planning a future where he got everything he wanted while I funded it. A convenient life with me. A passionate one with her. A baby he expected me to support because I was practical. For someone who thought I was boring, he certainly relied on me to carry the weight of his world. I pressed play again. "Brianna, so when are you telling her?" "Colin, when I have to, and when I do she'll stay. She always stays. That's who she is." My jaw tightened. He believed that, fully. Because I had created the illusion myself. Years of being dependable, steady, organized, predictable. But predictability isn't the same as passivity. He mistook my structure for weakness. He mistook my kindness for blindness. He mistook my loyalty for permission. He would realize very soon how wrong he was. That night, I made dinner, his favorite, chicken with lemon butter sauce. I set the table, lit a candle, played one of the playlists he loved. When he walked in, he paused, eyebrows lifting in pleasant surprise. "Wow," he said. "What's the occasion?" "No occasion," I said with a smile. "Just wanted a nice evening." He kissed my head. "You're the best, Nat. Seriously. I don't know what I'd do without you." I studied him for a beat. "Yes," I said softly. "I know." We ate, laughing, talking, him gesturing animatedly about work, me leaning forward at the right moments, nodding, responding with just enough enthusiasm. Every bit of warmth on my face was calculated. Every laugh had a purpose. Every question I asked was designed to keep things normal. Because Alicia was right, I needed time. Time to prepare. Time to gather evidence. Time to control the narrative before he ever realized there was one. After dinner, he kissed me deeply, hands on my hips. A rare gesture lately. He pulled back, smiling. "Thanks for tonight. I needed it." "I know," I said. "I'm always here for you, Colin." His smile softened. "You really are." We cleaned up together. He went to bed early. I stayed up late, sitting at the dining table with my laptop open, my files meticulously organized. Audio recordings, photos, financial logs, screenshots of suspicious messages, a folder labeled Paperwork, Attorney. And, at the bottom of the list, a new document I titled Exit Strategy. I didn't know yet whether I would leave him or whether I'd let him implode under the weight of his own decisions. But I knew this. Whatever happened next, he would not see it coming. And when the fall finally reached him, it would be a fall of his own making. He just didn't know yet that I was already holding the rope. The night everything finally snapped into place started deceptively ordinary. One of those evenings where the mundane feels almost suspicious in hindsight. I came home a little after 6, grocery bags digging into my palms, the sky outside dimming into that blue-gray shade that always made me want to light candles and start dinner. Colin's car wasn't in the driveway. Good. It gave me time to think. I set the groceries down, washed my hands, and took a long, steadying breath before I opened the refrigerator. I didn't need the food inside. I needed a moment where the cool air could hit my face and calm the heat blooming under my skin. Everything was almost in place. Alicia had confirmed the filing date for separation. The investigator had delivered the last batch of surveillance photos, Brianna's hand on Colin's cheek, Colin kissing her neck, Colin's voice on an audio recording murmuring promises he'd never whispered to me. "Don't worry," he told her in the recording. "Nat will always take care of what I can't." My own name in that tone, the tone of a man describing a household appliance, not a partner, had been the moment something inside me stopped breaking and instead hardened into resolve. A resolve I'd been waiting to use. I was slicing chicken breasts when I heard the garage door open. The knife paused mid-cut. Colin stepped into the kitchen doorway slowly, like the air was heavy against him. His tie hung crooked. His eyes were red, not from exhaustion, but from crying. Real crying. His cheeks were blotchy. His chest rose and fell, too quickly, too shallowly. "Natalie," he said softly. I wiped my hands on a towel and turned toward him. "Hey," I said, "you're home early." He stared at me like I had asked him to solve advanced physics. Then he dropped his keys. Literally, dropped them. They clattered loudly across the tile, but he didn't flinch. He looked hollow. "Can you sit?" he whispered. A weaker version of me, an older version of me, would have felt concern first. But that version of me was gone. I nodded and stepped into the living room, the towel still in my hand like a flag of truce. He followed, moving like he was underwater. He didn't sit beside me. He sat on the couch across from me, elbows on his knees, hands clasped so tightly the knuckles were bone white. "Natalie, something happened." I leaned back, keeping my expression neutral. "Okay." His throat tightened. He swallowed hard. "She's pregnant." He didn't have to say the name. I felt it in the space between us, thick and sour. I didn't blink. "Who?" I asked, because I wanted to hear him say it, clearly, without excuses. "Brianna." I inhaled slowly, silently. His voice trembled. "It wasn't supposed to happen, it just did." I let a beat pass. "And what does that mean for you?" "For us," he corrected quickly, eyes desperate. "I need you to understand that this doesn't change how I feel about you. I love you, Nat. You know that." I tilted my head. "And yet you were sleeping with your ex." "That..." He scrubbed a hand over his face. "It wasn't like that. It was complicated. Complicated enough to create a child." His eyes squeezed shut. "I came here because... I can't do this alone," he whispered. "I need you. You and I, We have a home, a life, stability. You're the only person who knows how to keep things together." He looked directly at me, and his gaze flickered. Shame, fear, and then calculation. There it was, the part he rehearsed. "I just need to know you'll still be here for us." There it was again. Us. As in, you and your pregnant ex-girlfriend? I asked. He actually had the audacity to nod. "Natalie, listen, you're practical. You understand real life better than anyone. You know how hard it is to start over. It just makes sense for us to stay together, at least until things settle. You can keep the house running. You always have." I let his words hang in the air like smoke. "You're saying this clearly?" I asked, voice calm. "Just so I understand exactly what you're asking." "Yes," he said, relief flickering across his face, like he believed I was finally slipping back into the role he preferred, supporter, stabilizer. "Yeah, I saw you at a fixer." He straightened, breathed deeply, and said it. "I'm having a baby. It's not with you. But you'll still provide for us, right? Because that's what you do. That's who you are." I watched him. The way he held my gaze defiantly, like he thought saying it confidently enough would make it logical. The way he framed it as responsibility instead of exploitation. The way he assumed, without hesitation, that my love for him meant he had endless credit. For the first time in months, I smiled. Not with warmth, with certainty. "Thank you," I said softly. He frowned. "For what?" "For saying it exactly the way you feel it." He blinked, thrown off balance. "Nats!" I stood, smooth and unhurried, walked down the hallway. He called after me, voice cracking, but I didn't answer. I opened the door to my home office, picked up my laptop, and returned to the living room. Colin watched me with growing confusion and something that looked like fear. I sat down, opened the screen, navigated to a folder labeled Insurance Documents. "What's that?" he asked, trying to laugh. "You doing taxes in the middle of this?" "No," I said gently. "I just want you to hear something." I turned the screen toward him. Then I pressed play. His voice filled the room instantly. Loud, clear, smug. "No, she has no idea. I told you, she's completely clueless. She actually believes I'm working late all those nights." Colin's eyes widened. His mouth dropped open slightly. But I didn't stop the recording. Brianna's laugh followed. "What are you going to do when she finds out?" "She won't. And even if she does, what's she going to do? Walk away? Please. She's practical. She'd never throw away the house. She's basically my safety net." He looked at me now, truly looked. I didn't look back. Colin's voice kept playing. "And when the baby comes, she'll help. She'll support us. She always does." His breathing became ragged. I didn't pause the recording. "Nat's just predictable. She's stable. I need that. And Brianna gives me what Nat can't." The room went silent except for the low hum of the laptop fan. Colin's face drained of color. "Natalie," he whispered. How did you?" I closed the laptop slowly. "Sit," I said. He sank back onto the couch like his legs couldn't hold him anymore. "For months," I said quietly, "you told yourself a story about who I am. You built a whole future around the belief that I'd never stop you, never question you, never walk away." He swallowed hard. "I can explain." "No," I said, "you can't." He reached for me, hands trembling, but I stepped back. "Listen, Nat, please, I raised a finger, and he fell silent. "I let you speak," I said. "Now it's my turn." He clenched his jaw, eyes shiny with panic. I opened a drawer in the coffee table and pulled out the neatly organized folder Alicia had helped me prepare. Colin stared at it like it was a live weapon. "This," I said, placing it in front of him, "is everything you've done, in photos, in transcripts, in timelines, in financial logs." I didn't, Nat, you have to understand." "I do," I said, "more than you think." He crumpled forward, hands over his face. "Natalie, please." But I wasn't finished. I leaned forward, my voice steady and calm. "You thought I was predictable," I said. "You thought I'd stay. You thought you could plan your future around my stability." His shoulders shook. "And tonight," I continued, "you told me clearly what you expect from me." He lifted his head, eyes red, hopeful, terrified. "So now," I said gently, "I'm going to show you what to expect from me." He didn't breathe. I handed him the last sheet of paper in the folder. A legal document. Filed that morning. "Colin Mercer," I said, "you're being served." He stared at the paper like it was written in a foreign language. "But you're practical," he whispered. "Yes," I said, "that's exactly why I'm done." He made a sound, a mix between a choke and a sob. I stood up, allowing myself one final look at the man who had built an entire fantasy on the assumption that I would always hold things together for him. "You wanted clarity," I said softly. "Now you have it. And for the first time in 7 years, I walked away from him without looking back. Colin didn't speak for a full 10 seconds after reading the document. He just stared at this page, eyes wide, mouth parted, chest heaving. His pupils were blown wide like someone who had just survived a car crash and hadn't yet realized he was still alive. Finally, his voice came out hoarse. "Divorce? Natalie, come on, you don't mean this." I didn't blink. "I do." He shook his head almost violently. No, this is reactionary. You're upset. You're in shock. You should have talked to me first, not this." "I did talk to you," I said evenly. "Tonight. You told me to my face that you wanted me to keep supporting you while you raised someone else's child." "That's not, I didn't, Nat, you're twisting what I meant." "Your recording twisted nothing," I said. "You were very clear." He looked like he might throw up. "I was lying," he blurted. "I was exaggerating for Brianna. You know how men talk. I didn't mean any of that. I was just, I don't know, trying to look good, trying to feel something." I tilted my head. "Is that the excuse you're going with?" "Yes," he said desperately. "I love you, Nat. I love you. Brianna doesn't mean anything. She was just... It was stupid. I panicked. I made mistakes, but..." "Mistakes don't last 8 months," I cut in. "Mistakes don't show up in hotel rooms and cash withdrawals and 2 hours of recorded conversations." He opened his mouth, closed it. "But we can fix this," he tried again, reaching for my hand. "We can do counseling. You can yell at me. You can set rules. I'll follow them. I'll do anything. Please, Nat. Please don't throw everything away." "You threw it away," I said. "All I'm doing is acknowledging it." His face twisted, rage curling around fear. "So that's it?" he snapped. "You're just done? No forgiveness? No second chance? After everything I've done for you?" I actually laughed, a short, sharp sound. "What exactly," I asked, "have you done for me?" He froze. "You lived in my home, off my planning, my stability, my ability to manage your life along with mine. Everything you're terrified of losing, you didn't build it." "I contributed," he shouted. "Oh, how?" I asked. "Emotionally, financially, with consistency, fidelity, honesty." His jaw clenched. "That's not fair," he said weakly. "It's accurate." I handed him another set of documents, thicker this time. "These are your move-out instructions," I said, prepared by my attorney. "Move out? Natalie, no, this is insane. I live here." "You did," I said. "Now you'll pack what's yours by Friday. Personal items only. Nothing purchased jointly." His panic spiked again. "You can't just kick me out. This is our home." "Our home," I repeated. "The mortgage is in both names. But do you remember who put down the entire down payment?" Silence. "And who has been making the majority of the payments, covering repairs, taxes, utilities, insurance?" He swallowed. "Natalie, I'm sorry," he whispered. "Please don't do this." "You're not sorry," I said. "You're scared." His eyes flicked up at me, guilty, desperate, furious. "But don't worry." I gave him a cold, calm smile. "That feeling is going to be very familiar soon." The next morning, the fallout began. Colin's phone rang non-stop. Brianna. According to the caller ID he forgot to hide. Then unknown. Then work. Then Brianna again. He didn't answer a single one. Instead, he hovered near me like a nervous shadow. "You're blowing this out of proportion," he said for the third time that morning, trailing behind me as I prepared coffee. "People work through affairs all the time. This isn't unforgivable." "You're right," I said, stirring my cup. "Some people do work through affairs." He brightened a fraction. Then I added, "Not us." His shoulders slumped. He followed me into the hallway. "Nat, look, if this is about the baby, we can figure that out. I'll talk to Brianna. I don't know, I'll handle it." "Oh, you'll handle it?" I echoed. "Impressive. You couldn't even handle telling me the truth." He winced. "And for what it's worth," I said, walking past him, "this isn't about the baby." He blinked in confusion. "It's not?" "No." I turned to face him fully. "It's about the fact that you plan to make me responsible for your choices." He opened his mouth, closed it. He had no argument left. 3 days later, as scheduled, Colin was served at work. My investigator later described the scene to me in a tone of professional neutrality, though I could hear the faintest note of satisfaction beneath it. Colin had been in the middle of a morning meeting. The server walked in, confirmed his name, and handed him the packet. "Consider yourself served." Colin's face apparently went through all 7 stages of grief in 20 seconds. His coworkers stared. His boss asked if he needed to step out. Colin said nothing. Not a word. He just clutched the documents, veins bulging in his temples, and left the room. When he got home that night, he slammed the front door so hard, a picture frame rattled off the wall. "You humiliated me," he shouted, storming into the living room. Good, I said calmly. Humiliation often precedes accountability. You didn't have to do it at work. It was the only place we could guarantee you'd receive it. No, he snapped, pointing at me like a child having a tantrum. You wanted to ruin me. If I wanted to ruin you, I said evenly, I would have sent the recordings to your entire contact list. He froze, and for the first time, I saw it clearly. The moment he realized just how precarious his situation truly was. Not because of what he'd done, but because he had finally grasped what I could do. The unraveling began quickly. Brianna's husband, yes, husband, found out about the affair 3 days after Colin was served. Apparently, she had resumed wearing a wedding ring at work to keep up appearances. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. Her husband confronted her. She panicked and called Colin 17 times in a row. He declined every call. He was too busy trying to keep his job. The HR department requested a meeting. Someone had seen him being served and started whispering that the cause was inappropriate conduct. Colin tried to spin it. He failed. His boss placed him on probation pending further review. Word travels quickly in corporate hallways. Colin's confident swagger deflated into something small, brittle, humiliated. For the first time in years, he had to deal with consequences unaided. At the house, I had already changed the locks. Legally, I could. He was no longer residing there. The first time he tried to use his old key, he rattled the doorknob like a burglar. "Natalie, open the door," he shouted. I opened it 3 inches, enough to meet his eyes. "Keys won't work anymore," I said. The attorney signed off. "You're unbelievable," he snapped. "You're a monster." "No," I said calmly. "I'm practical." His face twisted. "Don't use my words against me," he hissed. "You used me far worse." He didn't argue. He just sagged against the doorway, defeated. "Please," he whispered. "Can we just talk?" "Everything we need to say to each other," I answered, "will go through attorneys." I closed the door, locked it, walked away. And for the first time in the entire mess, I felt a piece of myself click cleanly back into place. The fallout rippled outward. Brianna attempted to reach me directly, through a desperate email full of fragments. "He told me you weren't leaving. He said you'd help. He lied to both of us." I didn't respond. Not my problem, not my responsibility, not my closure to provide. Colin's parents tried to contact me too, wanting details. I sent them a single sentence. "All relevant information will be provided through legal channels." They didn't message again. By week 4, the financial dissection had begun. A forensic accountant traced Colin's hidden transfers. Every ATM withdrawal. Every secret expense. Every hotel charge disguised as client meetings. All of it was cataloged. All of it admissible. All of it damning. Alicia called me after reviewing everything. "Your case is strong," she said. "Stronger than most. With the evidence you now possess, you'll likely retain the house entirely." "And him?" I asked. "He'll walk away with very little," she said. "Judges don't appreciate financial betrayal on top of infidelity." I nodded. Not triumphantly, not even happily. Just with acceptance. Because this wasn't about revenge. This was about balance. About correcting an equation that had never been equal, no matter how hard I'd pretended it was. Still, the breaking point for Colin didn't come from the court system, or from Brianna, or from losing his place in my home. It came from something much smaller. Petty even. He tried to enter the gym one morning, our shared membership. He scanned the old key card. Access denied. He tried again. Denied. He pounded on the plexiglass desk until the teenage attendant glanced up, unimpressed, and said, "Oh, dude, your membership got canceled. Partner took you off the plan or something." Colin stared at her blankly. And then, according to mutual acquaintances, he did something they'd never seen. He cried. Not for me. Not for us. Not even for the child he'd created with another woman. He cried because he had finally understood. I wasn't his stabilizer anymore. I wasn't his fallback. I wasn't his safety net. I was gone. And without me, his entire carefully exploited ecosystem collapsed. The divorce gained momentum like a freight train. Colin tried bargaining, begging, threatening, guilt-tripping. Nothing worked. He even tried promising to never see Brianna again. "I don't care who you see," I said. "You're not my responsibility." "Natalie," he whispered, defeated. "Please. I don't know how to live without you." I met his gaze without flinching. That, I said, was the problem all along. By the time the calendar rolled into the 6th week of proceedings, Colin looked like a ghost wearing his own skin. Not thinner, just diminished. Not broken, just emptied. Not devastated, just finally, painfully aware that actions have weight, and his were crushing him. He no longer swaggered when he walked. He no longer filled rooms with that effortless charm he used to wield like a second language. His voice, once so confident, so slippery, now carried a tremor he couldn't hide. But none of that slowed the process. The legal machine had started moving, and Colin, whether he realized it or not, was no longer driving anything. I was. And I was steering with a steady hand. The first major blow came when Alicia forwarded me a document stamped and notarized. Temporary financial freeze granted, meaning he could no longer touch joint accounts. He could no longer transfer money. He could no longer borrow, withdraw, or liquidate without consent. He tried anyway. Of course he did. He walked into a branch of our bank 2 days after the order and confidently attempted to withdraw $4,000. The teller politely informed him that the account required dual authorization. Colin argued. The manager confirmed. Colin made a scene. Security stepped in. I didn't hear about it from Colin. He didn't dare tell me. The bank manager emailed my attorney directly, as they're required to do in cases involving legal freezes. Alicia called me with a sigh that held equal parts amusement and annoyance. He is, she said dryly, exactly as incompetent at financial deception as his pattern suggests. I smiled. Good to know. The second blow wasn't legal. It was personal. And it arrived in the form of a phone call from an unknown number during my lunch break at work. I almost didn't answer, but something in my gut whispered, "This is one you need to hear." "Hello?" I said. There was a shaky breath on the other end. "Hi, Natalie. This is Melanie." Melanie. I recognized the name immediately. Brianna's older sister. The one Colin once described as a judgmental nightmare. The one Brianna had apparently gone to for advice during their affair. "What can I do for you?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. She hesitated. I thought you should know. Brianna, she lost the baby." The words hit the air like wet clay. Heavy, shapeless, impossible to process all at once. "Oh," I said quietly. After a beat, "I'm sorry for your family's loss." Melanie exhaled shakily. "I don't expect you to care, or forgive. God knows none of this is your fault. But Brianna, she's not doing well. Mentally, I mean." "I see." "And," Melanie hesitated, "she said Colin hasn't contacted her, at all." That didn't surprise me. Colin didn't do well with grief that required emotional stamina, especially grief that didn't serve him. "I'm sorry she's going through that," I said honestly, "but that's between them." "I know," Melanie said softly. I wanted to apologize. For everything. For what Brianna did. For what Colin did. You didn't deserve any of it." I didn't say anything. But my silence was acceptance, not rejection. "Goodbye, Natalie," she murmured. "Goodbye." I ended the call. Then I sat there for a long time, staring at my half-eaten lunch, trying to untangle the knot of feelings in my chest. Relief. Sadness. For the potential life lost. Sadness for Brianna, who was still a woman in pain, regardless of the choices she'd made. Sadness for the strange geometry of betrayal, which always seems to draw blood from the innocent. But sympathy has limits, and mine stopped at the border of what I owed to myself. When Colin found out about the miscarriage, he didn't tell me. He didn't face me. He didn't call me. He sent one text. "It's over. She lost it." I read the message twice, then a third time. Not once did he mention Brianna's name. Not once did he express grief. Not once did he acknowledge what he had put everyone through. It was transactional, even in loss. Like an update he owed me because it affected the logistics of his life. I stared at his words and felt a strange, cold clarity settle into place. He had never been capable of love the way I understood it. Only dependency, only attachment to convenience, only loyalty to the version of me that made his life easier. Anything beyond that was out of his depth. Over the next month, the divorce progressed, with the speed of an avalanche. Slow at first, then unstoppable. Colin tried every tactic in the book. 1. Bargaining. "If you give me back the guest room furniture, I won't contest the car." No. 2. Guilt tripping. "I'm sleeping on a friend's couch. Do you even care? That sounds like a problem for you to solve." 3. Anger. "You're vindictive. You're heartless. You created the situation. I'm just responding to it realistically." 4. Manipulation. "Can't we remember the good times? I miss you." No, you miss stability. He never once argued that he loved me. Not in a way that mattered. The court date arrived. Colin appeared with a suit that didn't fit right anymore, looser around the shoulders, tighter at the collar. He looked like someone had drained the color out of him. He didn't meet my eyes. Alicia presented the evidence methodically, like she was reading a grocery list. Infidelity. Deception. Financial misconduct. Attempts to conceal assets. audio recordings demonstrating intent to exploit the marriage. Colin's attorney looked like she wanted to be anywhere else. When it was Colin's turn to speak, he tried to play remorse. He cried. He wrung his hands. He talked about mistakes and lapses in judgment. But the judge didn't blink. Judges see two kinds of tears every day, the kind that come from regret and the kind that come from losing. Colin's were the second. In the end, the judge ruled decisively. I retained the house outright. Colin owed repayment of all misappropriated funds, plus interest. He received no claim to my retirement accounts. He was granted only the personal belongings he brought into the relationship. A clean break? A necessary one. Afterward, Colin approached me outside the courthouse. He looked smaller than I'd ever seen him. Not physically, just spiritually collapsed. He stopped 3 feet away, hands shaky. "Natalie," he said softly, "I just wanted to say—" "No," I said gently, "you don't get to rewrite the ending." He blinked, confused. "I wasn't trying to." "You were," I said. "You always have. But this time, the ending is mine." He swallowed. "You really don't forgive me?" he asked quietly, voice cracking. Forgiveness. People love that word. They treat it like currency, forgiveness in exchange for closure or comfort or absolution. But forgiveness is not something you owe to the person who hurt you. It's something you owe to the person you'll become after them. So I answered honestly. "I don't hate you," I said, "but forgiveness is irrelevant. What matters is that you no longer have access to me." He nodded slowly, like he was finally understanding. "This is really it," he whispered. "It's been it for a long time," I said. "You just didn't notice until now." He lowered his gaze. Then he turned and walked away. No grand gesture, no dramatic collapse. Just a man moving toward a future he had built with his own choices. And then he was gone. In the weeks that followed, something strange happened. Silence settled into my home. Not lonely silence. Peaceful silence. For the first time in years, I wasn't listening for footsteps. I wasn't waiting for late-night texts. I wasn't budgeting for two, cleaning for two, managing life for two. I wasn't carrying the weight of another adult's chaos on my back. The quiet wasn't empty. It was restorative. One evening, I sat on my newly repainted bedroom floor, sage green instead of the bland eggshell Colin preferred, surrounded by open windows and the smell of fresh air. And I felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Light. Not ecstatic, not euphoric, not numb. Just light, as if someone had returned gravity to its correct setting after years of walking through thick fog. I lay back on the floor, stared at the ceiling, and whispered to myself, "You're free." And for once, the voice inside me, the one Colin had spent years eroding, answered back, "Yes, you are." The months after the divorce were strangely quiet in the way an early morning is quiet, still, soft, filled with the faint feeling that something new is about to begin. I didn't rush. I didn't fill the silence with noise or people or distractions. I let myself sit with the emptiness Colin left behind, and slowly, I realized it wasn't emptiness at all. It was space. Space I hadn't had in years. Space I'd forgotten I deserved. I repainted the living room, rearranged the furniture, replaced the bed entirely, swapped out the light fixtures Colin always complained were too bright, opened the blinds, and let sunlight flood into places he used to darken with his moods. The house didn't feel haunted anymore. It felt reclaimed. Work became easier. Not because the workload changed, but because my mind did. When you're no longer carrying the emotional weight of someone else's failures, everything feels lighter. My coworkers noticed. "You seem different," one said, "happier." And I was. Not every moment and not all at once. But there were mornings when I woke up and the first thing I felt wasn't dread or anxiety or exhaustion. It was relief. It was possibility. I started dating again very slowly, intentionally, cautiously. The first few dates were awkward in that specific way. Post-divorce dates are awkward. Polite questions, too shiny smiles, overly curated stories. Men who said things like, "I'm very emotionally aware," with the confidence of someone who absolutely wasn't. Then there was one, Evan. I met him at an outdoor pottery workshop my friend signed me up for without asking. He was terrible at it. His clay bowl looked more like a wrinkled hat, but he laughed about it in a way that invited everyone else to laugh too. He didn't try to impress me. He didn't talk over anyone. He didn't fill silence with unnecessary noise. He was comfortable in his own presence, a rare, startling thing. We talked after class, light conversation that felt unforced. When he asked if I wanted to grab coffee sometime, he didn't say it with expectation. He said it with openness. I said yes. Slowly, carefully, we built something small and honest and real. He didn't ask about my past right away. He didn't pry. He didn't position himself as the hero of my story. When I finally told him about Colin, he listened quietly, then said, "I'm sorry you went through that, and I'm glad you're not with someone who didn't know your worth." No advice, no platitudes, just recognition. And I realized how rare that was. How many years I'd spent with someone who didn't see me at all. One afternoon, months into seeing Evan, we were walking downtown when it happened. I saw Colin. He was alone, stepping out of a cafe, wearing a shirt I used to iron for him. His hair was longer, his posture hunched, his expression unfocused. He looked older, not in years, in life. He saw me before I saw him. His eyes widened, his steps faltered. For a moment, just a moment, there was the ghost of who we used to be. Two people who once shared a life, a home, routines, dreams. Then the moment passed. He gave a small nod, a quiet acknowledgement. Not an invitation, not a plea, not a question. Just acceptance. I nodded back. Then Evan squeezed my hand, not possessively, but gently, grounding me. He didn't ask who Colin was. He didn't need to. We kept walking. And just like that, Colin became a memory instead of a wound. Months later, I heard through mutual acquaintances that Colin had moved to a smaller apartment across town, that he had left his job after the HR review became uncomfortable, that he was working at a smaller firm now, rebuilding or trying to. I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel pain. I felt distance, healthy distance, the kind that comes from finally understanding that someone else's chaos isn't your responsibility, no matter how long you carried it. One evening, Evan and I were cooking dinner together, poorly. We were both terrible at it, when he reached for a jar of sauce and knocked over a stack of bowls. We both startled, then we both laughed. And for some reason, in that ordinary domestic moment, something deep inside me clicked. Years ago, if Colin knocked something over, he would curse. Blame the cabinet, blame the bowl, blame me for putting things in weird places. Now I laughed with someone who didn't turn mistakes into weapons. It hit me with such clarity I had to sit down. "What?" Evan asked, amused. "You look like you saw God." I shook my head, smiling. "No, just learning something." "What's that?" "That love shouldn't feel like work." He set the sauce down, leaned against the counter, and nodded. "No," he said softly. "Love should feel like choosing someone, not managing them." I swallowed around the warmth rising in my chest. "Yes," I whispered, "exactly." Sometimes I still think about the night I played the recording for Colin, the moment his face fell, the instant he realized I was no longer the version of me he could manipulate. People ask if I regret it, if I was too cold, too calculating, too strategic. The answer hasn't changed. No, I don't regret the clarity. I don't regret protecting myself. I don't regret refusing to raise another woman's child while the man who betrayed me used my stability as his safety net. Because here is the truth I learned the hard way. Being kind is not the same as being compliant. Forgiving is not the same as forgetting. Trusting is not the same as surrendering. And loyalty is not owed to someone who treats you like an option. Colin taught me what manipulation looks like when it's wrapped in charm. He taught me how silence can be a warning sign, how practical can become a weapon, how love can be eroded quietly, one dismissal at a time. But he also taught me something else, something invaluable. He taught me what I deserve. Respect, accountability, reciprocity, a partner, not a dependent, a relationship built on honesty, not exploitation. A love that does not ask me to shrink. A love that does not expect me to carry everything without being carried in return. The last time Colin ever contacted me was on a quiet Sunday morning. A short message. No apologies, no pleas, no manipulation. Just one sentence. "I hope you're happy, Natalie. Truly." I read it once. Then I deleted it. Not in anger. In closure. Because I was happy. And even if I hadn't been yet, I was on my way. And most importantly, I no longer needed his permission to be.